Welcome, everybody. My name is Mark Dolfini, landlord coach and host of the Landlord Coach Daily show. Should you be buying right now? Well, there's lots of debate about it. Let's go ahead and get this show started, and we're going to talk about it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Welcome, everybody, to the Landlord Coach Daily show. Again, my name is Mark Dolfini, host of the Landlord Coach Daily show and the Landlord Coach. It's very good to see you all. If you're watching me live, please let me know that you're watching live and let me know where you're coming from. I would love to hear from both of my 3 fans. if you're watching on a replay, let me know where you're coming from. I always love to hear where you guys are at. So maybe I can try to tailor some of these shows towards your specific market. I don't invest in all different markets, but I certainly do hear a lot of stuff from across the United States. So today, what we're going to be talking about is, should you be buying right now? But there's real estate is, let's face it, real estate has been a popular investment for a really long time, especially if you remember the run up back in 2004, 2005, and 2006. There were 2 types of people who were in real estate and people who wanted to be in real estate. So it seems to be kind of the thing right now. And if you remember in 2006, there were a lot of people who were trying to get into real estate. They would sell their house because they could make a ton of money on it. But then the problem was they didn't have any place to live. They had to buy a place, right? So it's like, well, all the money that I made in my real estate deal, I had to turn around and give it away to someone else. So, and that seems to be what's going on to a certain degree. Mortgage rates are ridiculous lows. Money is very easy to come by. So there's lots of people who are very interested in buying real estate right now, which I get it. I totally understand. I mean, I'm a real estate guy. That's kind of what I do. But I have not been on a buying frenzy. So there's lots of people who kind of talk about that and say, are you leaving money on the table? Well, it's just part of my overall vision, part of my overall strategy. Before we get too far down the road, I want to offer this free download to those of you who are interested in maybe getting into the real estate business or buying more properties. Or even if you've got existing properties and help those properties cash flow a little bit better, you can go to this free download, landlordcoach.com/5 mistakes. So should you be buying right now? That is the question for today. And, it kind of prompted me to put this together today. I was posting something on my Landlord Coach page, and you're going to have your trolls. The trolls are going to, I flipped over a wheelbarrow the other day and a troll ran out from underneath it. And this particular troll ran out onto my page and was telling me what a horrible person that I was, and that housing providers, landlords should get a real job, and that I should, it was bullet pointed, that I should stop buying and running up the prices on housing. Okay. So it got me thinking here for just a second. Now, I don't even entertain that stuff. It's just not even worth arguing whether it's providing housing is a real job or not. I'm not even gonna get into that because, people could easily make the same argument about food and transportation and even cell phones. So, they had obviously an issue with capitalism more than they did have an issue with housing providers. But, that is what it is. So it got me thinking, though, about, how there's so many people right now who are renters, and 37%, almost 37% of the population of the United States are renters. That is the highest it's been, I think, since the 60s. It has never been this high, and it certainly has not been this raw number as high as it is. It's over 120 million Americans are currently renting right now. And it made me think about this for a second. So if you're looking at 37% of the population being renters, it made me think, well, why is that? Is there a particular reason why there are so many renters out there versus, I mean, just in terms of raw number, like I said, almost 121 million Americans are renters right now. So it made me think like, well, let me go out and see if there's any data and out there in terms of why people are renting. And again, I found this on porch.com. I reported on this before, but almost half of the residents that they interviewed, they don't know where they want to live long term. They don't want to set down roots, so they don't know where they want to live long term, which is understandable. And that's actually the same reason why my bride and I currently rent right now, because we don't know where we want to live long term. Now, I've got a bunch of real estate. People say, that's stupid. Why are you renting? Well, because quite frankly, we've got 2 children that, once they graduate, we don't 100% know where we want to live, So do we really want to buy a property where we're going to stay or not stay or whatever, right? Now, many of you know that my bride and I were not did really well in our marriage, a couple of years ago. We are amazing now. And thank you all for the prayers and the well wishes and everything like that. But we struggled, and we were on the struggle bus for a while, and, through no offense to either one of us, I mean, we weren't in a place in our relationship to buy a property. So, it wasn't until even recently that we were even considering that. But, so I totally understand that out of the 37% of the renters, out there, that 121 million, almost half of them, almost 60 million people don't know where they want to live long term. Of those same, again, this is a statistical sampling, but of that same data set, so of those same 1,000 renters, they didn't want to be tied down. Almost a third of them, 30%, didn't want to be tied down to a place, right? Or any specific place. So again, maybe they were just in a specific spot in their life where they didn't want to be tied down. Here's another interesting statistic of those same 1,000 people, that 24% of them, almost a quarter, did not want to be responsible for the property. So again, it makes me think, of that 37% of the renters out there, that 121 million that are out there renting, they like renting. They like renting for lots of different reasons, and there's nothing wrong with that. They like the flexibility of being able to choose where they want to live from one period of their life to the next, and they don't have to worry about unraveling a big purchase transaction. Now, again, you got to think of this, from a banking perspective. It's really good if for the bank, if you're buying and selling a property, between 5 and 7 years. Well, why is that? It's because the banks make most of their interest in those early years of the loan, right? So if you ran an amortization table, they're making probably 40 to 50%, depending on how the amortization runs, of the interest in that first 7 to 9 years of the mortgage. So of course the banks are going to love that, because they want that money. They want that money churning, right? So every time they get a new refi, or anytime they resets the clock, that's good for them. But here's the thing, that because there are so many renters out there, this is a huge opportunity for people who want to get into the rental business. They want to get into the rental game. They like the idea and the concept of passive income. Now, I just want to put this out there real fast. I don't want to get too derailed off this, but passive income does not mean that you just abdicate. It's like, well, I just set it on autopilot and turn it away. That's not what this is. If you're going to be a housing provider, there is some engagement that you need. If you think you're just going to turn it over to a property manager and they're just going to make all these decisions for you, and you're going to, be completely happy all the time, I'm telling you, as a property manager, it's a disengaged owner is not one that I like working with. I'm just saying that. But again, as you look at, the opportunity that's out there, there's a huge opportunity to serve, these 60 million people who don't even potentially really even want to own their own property. Huge opportunity, right? Well, if you look now, this brings me back into the whole point of today's show is, should you be buying now? And that's the context of today's show. Should you be buying right now as a landlord, as a housing provider? Well, I'm just letting you know right now, that there, as the prices go up, even though if you're buying on margin, which means you're buying, leverage, you're buying with a mortgage, that there are going to be thinner margins, which means as you buy those properties for higher and higher prices, to me, some of those numbers just didn't make sense. Like, I could not justify the amount of money someone was spending to buy the cash flow that came with that property. Now, you could make the argument that there was appreciation. You can make a partial, whatever. But just saying, if I'm buying that cash flow mechanism, and I'm only going to make 6% on my money, that to me is not enough. It's not enough. And that's just me, though. I like my cash on cash returns to be around 20%. Is that possible right now in today's market? It's tough, it's thin, but it's not impossible. So that requires either you have to find a really good deal or you're going to have to use leverage, right? So, and if you're interested in that, again, you can go to the download and you get some explanation about that. But what I'm saying is, the more you add in leverage, the better your cash on cash return gets. Okay, that's basically what that is. So if you're looking at real thin margins, that means you're going to have to take on additional risk to get those margins fatter. All right. So that makes me, that starts to get me really, really nervous, especially for those investors that climbed through the sewer. That was back in 2008 and 2009. That was a horrible time. I had all these properties where, on paper, I should have been making 20, 30% return because I had none of my own money in the deals. But because I was so over leveraged that when the economy turned against me, I didn't have any ability to keep the mortgages paid. Even so, from a percentage basis, my cash on cash return was amazing until I stopped getting cash coming in. And then it was terrible to the point where I lost, a bunch of properties. So what's going on right now is, of course, the FOMO, the fear of missing out. You've got so many people out there that are piling into the real estate investing world that they're just really worried about, if I don't buy this property now, even though the margins are really, really thin, should I buy this property? Should I get into this? Does it make sense? Well, if you look at the download, the 5 mistakes download, I'll put it up here again just for real. If you go to landlordcoach.com/5 mistakes, the example that's in there, I was trying to think of the word example. The example that's in there actually shows a property with a really thin margin. And it's like, does this make sense? It depends on what your vision is, for the future. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. I can't say this one is definitely one you should go for because I don't know what you're trying to accomplish. If you're 22 years old versus 52 years old, your vision's likely going to be different. Okay. One probably more, accumulation of wealth stage versus another one that's more reliant on cash flow stage, right? Just different, it's different reasons to invest. But there's a lot of fear of missing out right now. And that's where I would really caution you to rush in and start buying stuff just because you're afraid of missing opportunity. This is why you really need to be doing your homework right now and not just rushing into a property for the sake of just rushing into a property. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, does the deal make sense? Does the deal make sense? Not does the markets, make sense? Is it it's a good time to buy. It's a good time to sell. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be good deals out there, and there's always going to be terrible deals out there. Yes, the great deals are harder to come by. You got to dig through a lot of dirt right now and sift through a lot of stuff to make sure that you can find it. But does the deal make sense for what you're trying to accomplish? Go into the deal up front, understanding what it is you're trying to accomplish first before you get into the property. And then you can start analyzing the deal, looking through that lens. If you're looking at a specific deal and you're thinking, okay, well, and again, one of the things I always you'll hear my coaching students will say is your acquisition strategy has to match up with your disposition strategy. So meaning don't buy the property and go, well, I'll figure out what I'm going to do with it later. Meaning, am I going to turn it into a rental later? Am I going to turn it in? Am I going to flip the house? No, don't do that after the fact. You want to know that up front. You can have a backup disposition strategy, but also just make sure that your own disposition, what specifically you're trying to accomplish. I bought way too many properties up just because they were a great deal, air quotes, and then tried to figure out what I wanted to do with them after the fact. That is absolutely backwards thinking that got me into a lot of trouble. I should not have been buying properties specifically. This was probably back in 2004. Bought this gigantic house, flipped it, and I did pretty well on it. But honestly, I was distracted by that property for so many months that I let other properties and other properties sit vacant for way too long. As a result, it cost me dearly on my cash flow. So even though that was a great deal, it definitely would not have matched up with my vision or my disposition strategy when I first bought it. So that's all I have for today. I'm going to go ahead and put this back up one more time. That is the landlordcoach.com/5 mistakes. It talks about a lot of that stuff. It's a 14-page document that's an ebook basically, and it comes up with some worksheets and things like that. You can check it out, landlordcoach.com/5 mistakes. It is for free. And shall we end this up with a quote of the day? This is a really good quote, and I think it's very appropriate given the discussion today. Should you be buying right now? By Warren Buffett is, it's far better to buy a wonderful company at a fair price than a fair company at a wonderful price. And I think that goes hand in glove with buying a good property, you know, at a fair price than a meh property at a great price. So that is very well said by, of course, the Oracle of Omaha. That is all I have for today, everybody. I really appreciate you stopping by. Go ahead, let me know where you're coming from. And if there's anybody out there that maybe I have maybe missed, because again, I'm trying to produce these on my own. See if anybody has any comments out there. Greg Cross, I love your passion, Mark. Thank you. I appreciate that. FOMO is real in many industries. That is 100% true. I absolutely agree with you, because I think it was Rockefeller that said, you know, if you want to make money, wait until the blood is running in the streets. I think it's, you know, I think in that particular case, there was actual blood running in the streets back in his day. But, you know, realistically, when people are hungry, when they're starving, you know, I don't like to think of that. But panic, you know, when people are panic selling, it's a fantastic time to be buying. And being that contrarian type of investor is something that I've always understood and plugged into. But I will tell you, it is one of the hardest things in the world to do. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you for stopping by today. Please be sure to place a value on your free time, because if you don't, someone else will. But most important, there is no amount of money that will make time irrelevant. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time.